What's up, guys? This is Bradley alongside Zach and Dawson, and you are listening to the Charm City Sideline podcast. After a bit of a hiatus, after the Ravens lost to the Bills, we are back and full go all off season. First thing we wanted to sort of talk about is even though the Ravens weren't in it, the Super Bowl was 2 days ago, and it was probably surprising to most people. Eagles defeating the Chiefs 40-22. Chiefs could not complete the three-peat. A lot of interesting discussions going on in terms of Kelsey possibly retiring, Mahomes. Will he be able to catch Brady? Who knows? What do you guys think after the championship weekend and the Super Bowl, all that sort of culminating over the last couple of weeks?
It was definitely not the result that everyone thought it was going to be. I mean, you had the Chiefs literally come out here and get flat out embarrassed in a Super Bowl that many people, myself included, thought they would probably win. I did think the three-peat agenda was going to take full intact. I thought it was going to happen. But I mean, it was a pretty entertaining Super Bowl. I can't lie. It was nice to see the Chiefs finally genuinely get beat down. And I think this Eagles team was really good all season, of course, and they deserved it. And I'm happy for a lot of the players and coaches involved that finally got their ring.
Yeah, and there's a handful of the Eagles, we cheer for, even as, Ravens fans, but I thought the game was pretty good, even if it was a blowout. It was fun to watch the Chiefs lose in that way, just because it has really never happened, right? I've never seen Mahomes play that bad. I've never seen the Chiefs play that bad. And it being on the biggest stage, I think Fox came out and said it was the most watched Super Bowl ever. And the most watched Super Bowl ever is Patrick Mahomes getting curb stomped by the Eagles. So, hey, as a successful hate watch, perfect Super Bowl, but as a, just a fan of football, I don't know, it could have been better. But either way, fun halftime show, fun commercials. It was the perfect Super Bowl experience.
Yeah, shout out XX Beast, Charles, Chris, and Dawson for being here. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, it was interesting. I feel like the Super Bowl is sort of going to culminate into some thoughts we're going to have tonight about the Ravens. With the Eagles, like you guys mentioned, dominating the Chiefs. And it really showed that I think they were definitely the best roster in the league this whole year. And the Ravens lost to that. I really think, despite the missed field goals, I think it was really the only team that truly defeated the Ravens this season. But yeah, I think I don't know if anyone is beating the Eagles in this postseason.
I mean, I think this Super Bowl result and what we saw on Sunday was a tale old as time, and I truly think it solidifies that defense still wins championships to this day. And I can confidently say that I was someone who was not fully aboard that train anymore, but my gosh, dude, that Eagles defense put it on Kansas City, and that front seven, dude, was in his face all night long, dude. That was completely 100% the reason they won this game and in the fashion they did. I mean, that defense, dude, was lights out from the jump. I mean, you could see it on the first drive. Kansas City had no answer for them, and they never found one, and they just got absolutely controlled throughout the whole night. And I'm just hoping that the Ravens see this. Now, I'm hoping they all sat back and watched this game like we all did and see, I guess you could say the blueprint of a championship roster, because we have a great offense. We have a good defense, but not a great defense. So hopefully we can, we're going to get into this, of course, but hopefully we can add some pieces in the offseason to kind of replicate the showing that Philadelphia put down in Kansas City, because there's a technique there, and we can do it.
Yeah, for sure. So, I think it was interesting. And then I've seen conversations, people talking about Mahomes a little bit with, if he was able to get a third ring in a row, that would have been massive in terms of catching Brady. Because you kind of are going to have to win 2 or 3 in a row a couple times. 7 rings, and Brady getting his 7th ring at 44. It just shows how difficult it is. Do you guys have any thoughts about Mahomes possibly catching Brady? Do you think it's out of reach now? I think it's a little overblown. People saying the GOAT debate is over because like he still has 10 years left, if not more. But I don't know. I think it's an interesting conversation.
I hate to sit here and admit this and even talk about it because, of course, Mahomes is the predator of the AFC. It's a guy that unfortunately we're all chasing, and I do kind of still believe that Mahomes could catch him. Like, call me crazy, but he's not even 30 years old yet, right? And he's got, 3 rings, and he's been to 2 other Super Bowls that he lost. This guy could go – I mean, they were just in their 3rd Super Bowl in a row, and they were, one awful performance away from three-peating. So it's like Mahomes can 100% still catch Brady, and I don't know if he will. I'm not betting on it, but to say that, the GOAT debate's over, the decision can't be had, that's – blasphemy, dude. He can definitely catch him, and who knows, dude. Mahomes could end his career with a lot more rings than we all think he could. So, fortunately, I hope that's not the case, of course, because I would like the Ravens to get some rings involved in there with Mahomes still in the league, but we'll see what happens. Only time can tell.
And before I really switch up the topic here, I wanted to say that there was kind of the weird feeling of whenever the Eagles were up a lot in that game that, hey, maybe the Chiefs still can come back. And really the entire first half, they didn't really show that they could at any point. It didn't feel like, at least to me, that there was an imminent comeback, even possible. So I'm not saying that Brady is so much worse or Brady is so much better or whatever, but whenever it was Brady and the Patriots, even when there was nothing going, it still felt like, okay, don't give them the fourth quarter. Don't take the foot off the gas. This was kind of a straight up beatdown, and I'm glad that someone actually did it to the Chiefs. But gentlemen, I want to dive into really the team that we're supposed to be covering right now, the Ravens, reflecting on 2024. Dawson, what is the first thought whenever you think about the Ravens season as a whole and what you would change? What was your favorite part? Any part of it?
I mean, I guess you can say job not finished. I mean, it's kind of been the motto for a few seasons now, and I hate to immediately kind of try to get in that mindset of like, hey, let's run it back. Like, it's our year. Because I don't want to fall into this trap like we're the Dallas Cowboys, where every year we're saying, it's our year. We're winning it all. I hate to sit here and say that, but I truly think this team, as you can see, the Super Bowl odds have already come out for next season, and we're, I think, top 3 against all the main sports books. So it's a worldwide thing. We know the Ravens are going to be right back there. They're going to run it back. They're going to be a championship contender next season, but it's sour, man. It sucks because this season was an absolutely incredible season. We all thought, even the media, non-Ravens fans including, we thought we were going to get it done. We thought if there's any year this team can go, we thought it would be this year. Fortunately, that was cut short, and fortunately for us, the teams that cut us short lost as well, so that always makes it a little bit better with dealing with our loss. But I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. We've been talking about this for weeks now, even off, the podcast, of course. There's no other way around it. It was a great season, but we didn't get it done. So what does that matter? So all I hope is this team can run it back. Fortunately for us, we don't have any big departures this offseason other than, I would say, potentially Ronnie Stanley leaving in free agency. It's not like a year where we got a big free agent we got to re-sign, or it's, doomsday over here. So it looks like we're going to have a pretty intact roster and coaching staff, which we'll dive into that as well heading into next season. So I don't see why this team can't be right back in the same spot. And hopefully with a couple other additions in free agency in the draft, maybe this time they can go even further.
I definitely think I like this comment here from David. I think we're forgetting that like the Ravens were 0-2, and it was definitely one of the most impressive regular seasons I remember in a long time. Maybe if not the most impressive. 0-2 to 12-5 is really impressive. At the same time, I think something that not as many people are talking about is like, I'm not saying the Ravens would have beat the Bills at home, but I kind of am. Like, you go back to the Raiders loss and the Browns loss, and if the Ravens would have won those 2 games, they would have been hosting the Bills in Baltimore without snow. And I just think it's a different game. So like that's sort of like the main point I'm looking at is like going into next year, yes, the playoffs are what matters the most, but it is true, like, the higher your seed is, the easier it is in the postseason. So you need to take these games seriously. I'm not saying they aren't, but play every game like it's a playoff game. Like, you can't have turnovers. You can't be losing to the Raiders and the Browns and have to go up to Buffalo in January instead of playing at home. One other thought I have is I think you guys would agree with me. The offensive line was not good enough. It looked terrible in September, and Roger Rosengarten really picked it up. I mean, I think he's going to be a franchise tackle. Don't know which side yet, but he's going to be playing one of the sides for a long time. The guard play was just not good enough. And, we're going to talk about this later, but I think the trenches are going to should be the number one priority this offseason.
And not to mention just the negative stuff. I mean, there's plenty to reflect on that was far more positive. I mean, if you want to talk about just rookies and their impact, both of the Rosengarten and Wiggins were fully blown out expectations. And anyone that we got really help from, maybe our Darius Washington comes to mind, maybe Bateman taking a different kind of step up in productivity, likely being a bigger part of it. There were so many different spurts of players, even defensively, having Calvin Noy having his best season yet. There's so many positives that we can build on. I'm just so interested to see how DaCosta goes about. Do we need help in corner? Are we going to lose Brandon Stevens? A few comments here saying get rid of 21. And I'm sure us three are also kind of the same way. But hey, if he's back, it's depth, whatever. But there was plenty of things to hang your hat on that we can build on. I think of earlier in the season when we talked about the Ravens and the spot they're in and, the team could be better. The defense needs to be better. And now it's a totally different feeling. We get to start the season with a confident Zach Orr and his defense, and really most of the pieces for that defense coming back. So any slow start might be from the offense, might be from the defense, maybe not playing as much preseason. That's been kind of a weird issue, but it might just be the fact that everything that the Ravens have learned over this whole offseason, or who they've brought in, nothing has meshed. And I think that since it had this massive turnaround, like we said, greatest midseason turnaround in a long time, the possibility to start and not lose the games that we shouldn't have lost is possible. Very possible. It was possible this last year. But now, since everything is in such a good roll and flow with Henry and with the defense now too, I feel more confident. Just let's say the season starts tomorrow, we'd be pumped. We'd be freaking psyched up. But we got a long time. So
yeah, I think you guys both made really good points. And I do specifically like the point that Brad said. It's a discussion that we usually have throughout the whole season, kind of through the ups and downs of where the playoff seeding is going to. But at the end of the day, the high seed is what you want. I mean, we can sit here and say we don't want the 1 seed, and I'll say I was the same way. I was saying that I think in the middle of the season as well. But at the end of the day, we go into Buffalo and those kind of elements, and it 100% affected the way the Ravens played. There's no beating around it. It 100% not caused the Ravens to lose, but of course it hurt them in a big way. So you obviously want the 1 seed, you want the highest advantage, you want to be at your house in the playoffs, and losing early games in the season, we fall to 0-2 in 2 games that you probably could have won, to be honest with you. And then not to mention one later in the season, or not too much later, but you drop one to Cleveland. And these are very important, because losing a game like the Browns or the Raiders, you could say that probably costed the Ravens a Super Bowl appearance. I mean, who knows? AFC championship appearance at the least. I mean, it sucks, man. It is what it is. And those are just silly games that every year, for some reason, the Ravens decide to play down to their opponent and beat themselves and lose. And I just hope that going into next season, the optimism is going to be through the roof. We know this, that the Ravens come in and play, hard football, and know that what happens in previous years cannot happen this year. And I mean, seriously, I was talking the other day to one of my family members, and we were kind of briefly talking on the whole Super Bowl window thing, if you believe in that. And I'll say I don't. I don't believe in the Super Bowl like Super Bowl window thing. I don't believe that's a real thing, especially when you're a franchise quarterback like Lamar. You're always going to be in a Super Bowl window, no matter who's around you. We saw him win MVP, and we were 14-2 in 2019 with a roster that, to be honest with you, on paper was not that good.
Yeah.
So anything can happen any year. But as far as this point, what I'm making, I do really believe that this is one of the best opportunities for the Ravens to win a Super Bowl is with Derrick Henry on the team. It sucks that we didn't do it this year, but next year and hopefully a couple of years after that, it looks like the Ravens are trying to get an extension done with Derrick Henry. If you guys did not hear, they're looking to lock him up for a couple more years at the very least, which is nice. Hopefully he can retire a Raven. But I do think this is the best window of opportunity for the Ravens to get to a championship and maximize their winnings and hopefully take home a ring. So we'll see what happens. God, man, it's got to happen eventually. It really sucks wasting these highly, highly successful seasons, especially when you have a quarterback put up a top 5 season of all time at the position. I mean, I don't think you can really argue that. Not to mention he gets robbed of MVP, but we won't talk about that. But the main thing is the consistency. This team is running it back next year, and that kind of gets us into our next point we're going to be talking about here shortly, is that this coaching staff's 100% intact. This roster is pretty much the same exact roster as last year that we will be heading into the next season. And then obviously just the additions in free agency and draft, which is going to be huge. And, I don't know if you guys all saw, I'm sure we have by now, the Ravens got an extension done with offensive coordinator Todd Monken, quickly after their season abruptly ended at Buffalo. So they bring their guy back. The architect of this unique, amazing, versatile offense in Baltimore is here for years to come. We never got the terms on the contract extension. I would probably guess 2 or 3 years, boys. Am I right?
Yeah, probably something like that.
I'm probably going to say he's probably here for at least the next couple of years, few seasons, which is nice. So yeah, man, we just got to run it back next year, and this consistency is going to go a long way. We got to start the season off hot and just add some more pieces and make a run at this thing.
Yeah, Monken, that extension was obviously good news for all of us. It's finally some continuity for Lamar. He came in here with Marty and had a couple of years of Greg Roman. And now it's going to be the 3rd year with Monken. I was watching the Stay Hot Pod with Theo Ash, who Ravens fans all love for his MVP takes currently. But he was talking about how it feels like all of these elite teams that go on to win Super Bowls sort of have this old coordinator that's never going to leave. And you see that with the Chiefs with Spags, no one's hiring him. And you just have that continuity forever on the defensive side of the ball. And he mentioned it with the Eagles, with Vic Fangio. No one is hiring Vic Fangio to be their head coach. The Eagles have probably the best offensive line coach in the NFL, Jeff Stoutland, who a lot of people respect a lot. No one is hiring him. He's 62. He's the best offensive line coach in the league. And I'm starting to be somewhat hopeful that could be Todd Monken. You look back at the Patriots, Josh McDaniels was just there Tom Brady's whole career.
Yeah.
Eric Bieniemy.
There you go. And it's just if we could have Monken be this offensive coordinator for the rest of Lamar's career, I'm not saying it's going to happen. Maybe he gets hired next year, who knows? But I think he's a few years away from being there, being that old guy who's never leaving.
I said it throughout the season. I'm gonna real quick put in. I said it throughout the season with all the uncertainty if he's going to take a job or not. I was all aboard the train that I don't think he's going to leave, and luckily it looks like I was right because he's a great coach. Of course, he's a great coordinator. But at the end of the day, all these teams nowadays, if you look at all the head coaching hirings that happened this offseason, they're all young guys who are getting their first, maybe second opportunity at head coach. I mean, they're all going young. These teams want young offensive just gurus. I mean, that's how it is. And there was a lot of defensive coaches hired this cycle too, it looks like. But I just, that recent history of a failed head coach is going to scare teams a little bit. And then, just his age. I mean, he's 58 years old, which is not super old, but a lot of these teams have young quarterbacks and they don't want a guy coming in who's 60 years old trying to help their young quarterback develop. A lot of them are going after, Ben Johnson's and all those guys like that. So it's a blessing to have him back, man. And I agree, Brad. I hope he's here for long term because, dude, can you imagine? Can you imagine if we're going into like a 5th season of Todd Monken with Lamar and maybe Derrick Henry? I mean, like seriously, dude, it's gonna get better every year. I mean, it's already gotten better every season he's been here. And imagine just all the more pieces we can add, all the more off seasons we can have of just putting in the playbook and just, dude, oh my God, it would be absolutely incredible if we can finally have this long-term coordinator, because I cannot tell you the last time the Ravens had any situation like that. It's been a long, long time.
And I love what you guys are saying. I'm a massive fan of that. And what had me really scared, I think it was around Christmas time. I was personally under the conception that we were going to lose him. I mean, we had a top 3 offense basically all year, stat wise,
all time.
It was unbelievable. And I did a lot of research to like try and assure myself or try and look back and see what went wrong for Monken really in his career. If you go back, he coaches for the Buccaneers at one point. Their statistics, as in yards per attempt, they're like off the freaking stat page. They're the best, or at least top 3 in the league. It's crazy. So what went wrong? Well, they also led the league in interceptions. They had Jameis Winston at quarterback for a few of those years.
Was that the 30-30 season?
I believe it was. Yes. And it's funny that, you switch up something as pivotal in an NFL team and an NFL offense as quarterbacks, switching a Jameis Winston for a all-time level quarterback, and it's become magic, really. So I was worried because, on paper, if you take out Jameis Winston and replace him with Lamar, if another team thinks really confidently that they have a quarterback for the future and maybe Monken can be that guy to really lead their offense and call it for the next few years, then why wouldn't you go get him? But I think there's something about Monken deciding to stay in Baltimore and realizing, I've had that stuff in the past and Georgia opportunities and everything else that he's done and been successful with. But if you have a team that you, very smart thinking wise, see is a Super Bowl contender for probably the next 8 years, why wouldn't you stay? Why wouldn't you stay? So I'm just thankful for Monken to be thinking that way. I think that that's a big deal, and especially just because how much offenses and coordinators and coaches change nowadays with just a carousel every offseason. It is such a fun idea to think about that we're going to have Monken calling the plays for a bit. I can't guarantee how long, but it's exciting to think about.
Yeah, and I don't know how to explain it, but just did you guys just hear my email? Sorry about that. I just got an email notification. But we saw the way that he coached before that second Steelers regular season game when he's yelling at the players to hold on to the ball. And we didn't see that at all with Greg Roman. I don't know that Greg Roman was yelling at anyone. And obviously there's a limit, but I think Greg Roman is a very quiet coach. And I think Monken and Lamar, I think Monken is the perfect coach for Lamar. I think Lamar really responds well to harsh criticism, could you call it? I think he enjoys being coached like that. And knowing that that's sort of Monken's style, I think is really nice. And we saw Zay Flowers talking about at his season-ending presser. He was it's gonna be nice enough to learn another playbook and all sorts of things like that. But I don't know, man. It's interesting with the coaching staff because John Harbaugh has 1 year left on his contract, and I'll just say that the Ravens, if they 100% wanted him for the future, Harbaugh, they would have extended him by now.
I thought the same thing, Brad.
Yeah.
A few days ago, I was sitting here just thinking within my own brain, and I was like, it's kind of odd that Harbaugh has not been extended yet, because that's the first thing teams attack in the offseason is their coaching staff and make sure they have all guys in place. And like you said, he has 1 year remaining. And It's February 11th. He would have been extended by now if the Ravens for sure knew they wanted him for at least 2 or 3 more seasons. Wow. So I have an interesting take. I'll let you finish up your point, Brad, but I have an interesting thought process as far as the coaching staff.
Yeah, just the last thing I was going to say there is, let's say they give Harbaugh 1 more year and maybe he moves to a front office role. It would be interesting to see like Orr or Monken. You know what I mean? And obviously they'd interview other guys as well, but the future of this coaching staff is in a great spot, in my opinion, but also very much in doubt.
It kind of led me right into my point, Brad. I think there is an alternate universe out here, and I'm going to lead into this with a grain of salt. Hear me out, guys. I think there's a world out here where the Ravens are essentially, you could say, grooming Zach Orr to be the successor to John Harbaugh. Seriously, I think there's a real world out there where the Ravens believe that he could potentially be their next head coach. And he's super young. He's super passionate. He's a player's coach. He's super energetic. He's obviously beloved throughout the entire organization. And they brought in senior coach Chuck Pagano, who, by the way, I freaking love the Chuck Pagano thing.
Yes.
When I got the notification that the Ravens brought in Chuck Pagano as the senior secondary coach, I was literally ecstatic. I didn't care what he was doing. Just the fact of him being in the building with this team, I was so excited. He is a phenomenal coach, a defensive guru, and the dude knows the game. I mean, seriously. And you have Dean Pease and Chuck Pagano now on the defensive side of the ball as just secondary, like advising coaches. I think there's a world out there where the Ravens are potentially testing and seeing how Zach Orr responds to the adversity that he went through, of course, with how bad the defense was playing. But now he's got all these veteran leaders around him. I don't think it's crazy to think about that. I think Harbaugh might I think the Ravens might ride out this contract. And I would say if he's not extended by week 1 of this next season, I think 100% they're going to let it ride out and try to find something after. But man, I can't say I'm not opposed to it. I'm opposed to it. I would. Who knows, dude? Who knows? I love the passion that he brings. I love the energy. And I mean, the dude's freaking awesome. How cool would that be? Can you imagine Zach Orr was, this all pro linebacker for us and 10 years later, or not even, he's the head coach of the team. That'd be so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of the guy you'd want, leading your team. It's the guy everyone wants to fight for. And it's, the players would do anything for that guy, man. And it's cool to see how he connects with all of them.
Yeah, I love that. I think everyone's a fan of Orr and really just his complete story. But he got over the hump midseason. How do the Ravens get over the hump, guys? I mean, if you end the season as heartbreaking as you do against the Bills, sure, Bills also don't make it, to the end. I mean, that's also something to note. It's still the Chiefs league. But how do you get over the hump? How do you make an Eagles team? Someone commented that the Eagles constructed one of the best rosters maybe of all time. I mean, it wasn't necessarily paying a stupid amount of guys either. Saquon has a big contract, but I mean, you pick up guys like Zach Bond and you draft extremely well. I mean, they just turn into a juggernaut of a group, and it's not necessarily from the greatest team and paying the greatest team. It's not a Rams team, right? Rams, whenever they won the Super Bowl, they paid everybody and traded for everybody. And it was really crazy that way. So what do you guys think?
I'm going to put this on the screen right now. I think I have access to do this. That right there is what the Ravens need to do to compete for a championship. If the Super Bowl was anything to be told, build the trenches. We said this I'm pretty sure the last episode we did, after our season was abruptly cut short. I think we all kind of very harshly expressed this. I think I did at least. Build the trenches, dude. Go out here, build this wall in front of Lamar, and stack the defensive line. And we already have a lot of core pieces on both of these respective sides, which is very promising. You have Roger Rosengarten, who Brad said, I would say is probably a franchise tackle based off what we saw in his rookie season. Who knows what side yet? We don't know if Ronnie Stanley is going to leave in free agency or not. I would say hopefully he stays. But either way, you have Tyler Linderbaum, of course, and then you have Justin Madubuike on the defensive side, and you have a bunch of other guys behind him that are very solid. But go out there and make a move, man. We have, I think, 11 draft picks this year? We have a lot.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
A lot of draft picks.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we have a lot of draft picks.
They're all in the 7th round. But still.
If anyone saw my Insta post earlier on Instagram, go out here, make use of these picks. As they say, F them picks. Go make moves and get these players to stack this team and make a run for a championship. I'm sick of picking like 10 players in the draft and maybe 3 or 4 of them pan out, and all the others are just kind of nobodies and drift away. Like, use these picks. I don't care what pick, even if it's a first rounder, utilize these picks, go out and get a guy. Pipe dream, go get Micah Parsons. Go call Jerry Jones down in Dallas. Ask him what he wants from Micah Parsons, man. And if it doesn't break your franchise, make it happen. Pay the man, go get him and pay the man and get a franchise pass rusher. It has been far too long where the Ravens have lacked a true dominant game-changing pass rusher. I would say probably since T Sizzle left. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, boys. It's been a long time. Nice, Cam Scannabo. But can you imagine if the Ravens insert Micah Parsons into this defense right now? You'd probably have to give up Odafe Owe, of course. I mean, if you're a logical head with Jerry Jones, at the very least, he's going. Someone's going to go in return. But, like, you put Micah Parsons on the edge, dude, in this defense, and you don't lose any other really crazy piece, dude. I mean, you're going to run for a championship. I mean, I don't know how to express that anymore. That will be the piece to get you there because, dude, the Super Bowl, I mean, the Chiefs, the Kryptonite, the team that we cannot beat to get there, also Buffalo this year, dude, the defense was all over Mahomes. I mean, that is the print right there on how to beat Kansas City and make it to the Super Bowl and, God forbid, win the Super Bowl. Go make a move and get a franchise pass rusher. I get like to go get some solid free agents, draft well, develop. No. We're in a Super Bowl window right now, at least in the best opportunity for this team. You have Derrick Henry, you have Lamar, you have a coaching staff intact, you have plenty of picks, you have really solid roster. You're missing maybe a couple pieces, and you put a dominant pass rusher right into that team and don't lose elsewhere, man. This team can 100% make a run and go to the Super Bowl. And obviously, there's other situations where I think, we can utilize to get over the hump. But I'm telling you right now, man, I'm confident in this offense running it back with the way it is. Add a little bit pieces on the offensive line, maybe lock up Stanley. But I just focus on the front seven of the defense, man. Go get Micah Parsons.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's sort of been too long without a splash move, I guess you could call it. And what's interesting is Howie Roseman is just like unreal how good he might be the best general manager in NFL history. Because you look at the Eagles and it's like they find ways to do both. Like they go trade for an A.J. Brown and then they also still have first round picks and draft Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo, and he's like the best rookie corner we've seen in a long time. They get Cooper DeJean, the best rookie nickel we've seen in a long time. First white corner since the early 2000s. Pick 6 in the Super Bowl. Like, it's definitely, in terms of like offseason strategy, it's interesting about like which way to go, because Dawson and I were talking about this a few weeks ago about Micah Parsons, or like probably can't get Myles Garrett, unfortunately. Who knows if Max Crosby's available. It's interesting because I was like, would you trade Nate Wiggins and Zay Flowers for Micah Parsons? Because like those are the Ravens' past 2 first-round picks. So like if you're going to trade 2 firsts for Micah, you're sort of thinking like it's those types of players that you could be missing out on cheap deals. It is interesting. I think maybe like I think there needs to be some type of splash move. Maybe like trading up in the first round and getting like the first or second best tackle if you can't pay Ronnie. I was messing around on Spotrac the other day just because you can do like off-season building on there. It's actually really cool. I extended Ronnie like 2 years, $22 million. 2 years, $42 million. And I signed Zeitler from the Lions, and I still traded 2 firsts for Micah. And you can make all of it work with just a few restructures. You don't even need to go crazy like the Rams and Les Snead did a few years ago. I think it's more so like missing out on those 2 first-round picks is big. But Micah Parsons is a 25-year-old pass rusher who's one of the best in the league. So I don't know. It's really interesting.
That's what I'm saying, man. If I'm the Ravens, I'm buying in. And back to that conversation we had, not too long ago, Brad. I like that you brought up that point. But if you think about it, you think about the Ravens roster at every single position group, they pretty much have a star. And after the star, they have really good players. Quarterback, you have Lamar. Tight end, you have Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews. Running back, Derrick Henry. Wide receiver, Zay Flowers. Offensive line, Tyler Linderbaum, Roger Rosengarten. Defensive line, Justin Madubuike. Corner, Marlon Humphrey. Nate Wiggins is going to be really good. Linebacker, Roquan Smith. Safety, Kyle Hamilton. What's the one position that they don't have a true star at? Pass rusher. I mean, if you think about it, seriously, we have a bona fide top player at every single position on the field, except for pass rusher. And it's crazy we're sitting here talking not smack about our pass rushers, but not talking highly of them when I think we were like top 3 in the league in sacks, and Odafe had 10, and Kyle Vanoy had like 12 and a half. It's crazy that our top 2 pass rushers both had double-digit sacks, and we're sitting here begging for the Ravens to go trade for a pass rusher. We know that Owe and Kyle Vanoy can get it done. They put up numbers. They just don't have a game-changing element to their play. I mean, you watch Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, Aiden Hutchinson, any of these top TJ Watt, any of these top guys, dude, they single-handedly can win their team games and give them extra drives and just make stuff happen. We have not seen that on the Ravens in a long time coming from that position. We have way too many draft picks to sit here on top of and just dance around. We can make money work. Like you said, Brad, there's restructures we can do in a lot of really large contracts, potentially move on from Mark Andrews, which frees up, I think, $11 million in cap. You can't sit here and tell me the Ravens cannot make it work. The Ravens can make it work if they want to make it work, and Eric DeCosta is the perfect GM, and he can and will make it happen. You look at this Eagles team, like you said, Howie Roseman, what he does, he's the best GM in the NFL. I don't care what anyone says. He is phenomenal. And Eric DeCosta has proven to be very good as well, and he drafts very well. That's why it's hard to think about getting rid of picks, because he drafts very well. But if you know you're getting a 25-year-old pass rusher who has never had less than 11 sacks in a season, I think it is, entering his prime, dude, you have to be all over that. I mean, you have to be sitting here with your mouth wide open. You got to at least make the phone call, right? I mean, seriously, I hate to try to push this agenda because a lot of people are going to say, there's no way that ever happens. It's unrealistic. Just move on. No, it's not. This would turn the team immediately into like the Super Bowl contender, the team to beat. And I know we say this every year, but I think we can all agree on this. Micah Parsons would make this team significantly better. And I wouldn't even think twice on what we give up, because what you're getting is way more valuable than what you give up.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying. I'm totally on this boat. I'm with you. When we talk about the Eagles, right, their ability to pay the right guys and somehow have the best production for the bang for their buck in the league, the Ravens technically did it. You mentioned it, right? Van Noy and Owe, Bateman even on his extension. Those two, pass rush wise, put up 20 plus sacks, and we're like, oh, we really need a star. And I totally agree with you. I think most fans agree with us. I'm just try being Eric DeCosta for a second. Sit in his chair and try and think, well, I just got the ridiculous production I got from those two, or really all of the committee of the defense and who they are right now on their deals. And we didn't make it all the way. There's still a missing piece. And it goes back to the very beginning of this conversation, how I really prompted you guys. Does it mean 2 first-round picks and a player go to the Cowboys and get Micah Parsons? Well said, Dawson. I wouldn't bat an eye. I don't care what they give up, even if it's a different guy that becomes available. That, on the other hand, pass rushers are like premium right now in the league, especially the top dogs. Myles Garrett requesting a trade. If he gets traded maybe pre-draft, that would be a big, what's the word? Really an idea for how much you would have to give up for an elite level pass rusher. So I don't know. There's movements to be made in the NFL. There's always going to be. I'm just, as much fun as it would be with someone like Parsons, I have a very mellow feeling about it. I don't feel very confident in that move. I hope it happens, but I think they'll address stuff like what Brad was saying. I think offensive line is a big thing that needs help. And if you want to talk about a trade, and it's kind of easy to do with some later picks, is offensive line. I think teams are willing to give up veterans for lesser picks just due to the fact that offensive line can be good later in the draft as well. You can find the gems. And I think it's more likely we probably trade for an offensive lineman this year than a pass rusher, sadly.
Yeah, I really don't want to enter the draft like offensive line or nothing. Like I really want. We also talked about that, Brad, in that conversation.
Yeah.
I really hope the Ravens position themselves in this draft where first round it's pretty much BPA. You know, best player available that you want. I really pray, I really do hope that the Ravens are not going into round one, that it's like offensive line rounds 1 or 2 or nothing. Like that would be sickening. It would really suck. And I hope we don't all going to see that happen. But I mean, back to the Micah Parsons whole pass rush conversation real quick. I think out of the 3 that are rumored to be on the trade block with Micah, Miles, and Max, that's funny, all M's. I think Micah would be the easiest to get, truly. I don't think Myles Garrett's going to go anywhere relatively soon. And there's no way they're trading Myles Garrett to Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore would have to give up the farm system. I mean, it would be ridiculous what Ravens. They would have to give up a lot just to get Myles Garrett anywhere else. Imagine going to the Ravens. You'd have to give double. Max Crosby, I don't think's leaving because there's a whole thing where he's kind of buying into the new regime under Pete Carroll, which I understand. I would too. Yeah. So I think Micah Parsons is way more realistic than the other 2. And, you know, Jerry Jones, love him or hate him, he's got a history of doing some questionable things. So the fact that this is even a rumor right now that Micah's on the move or potentially on the move is crazy. I mean, seriously. So I think we can think about the hypothetical of what it would cost to get Micah Parsons. But in all reality, dude, Eric DaCosta could potentially pull out a robbery. I mean, who knows? We can get this guy for like, what did I say earlier? I said Odafe Owe.
A first and a third.
No. I said Odafe Owe, next year's first or this year's first and 2/3. I mean, seriously. I mean, who knows? The Cowboys might just be looking to offset them. I mean, who knows how much money we can, wiggle out to extend them too, because once you get them, you obviously got to extend them. So I don't know. I'm done talking about the hypothetical Micah Parsons of Baltimore. All I know is if that happens, the jersey will be on its way to my house before pen hits paper. I just think it would be too good of a move to not explore. But I think, based off other moves too, there's a couple other things the Ravens could potentially do. They could potentially go after a legitimate wide receiver 3 or just another wide receiver to throw in the room with Zay and Bate, because come playoff time, you're out your wide receiver 1 going into Buffalo, and no discredit towards Bateman, but that's all we had. I mean, it's a position where the Ravens tried to get away from it with, grabbing Deontay Johnson. That never worked. So here they are going into Buffalo with 1 decent, legitimate wide receiver option and nobody else. And that 100% hurt them. We couldn't really get the pass game going, which really sucked. So maybe they go after a trade and Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, who knows? But I'm just going to stay on this trade train, man. The Ravens, you can sign all the free agents you want and stuff, but I really think this is a year that you got to go out, utilize the stock hoard of picks you have, and make a move where you know what you're getting and you know what you're positioning yourself for. I don't see why the Ravens should have, 11 picks in the draft. If they pick 11 guys in this draft, I'm not going to lie, boys. I'm going to be pretty upset.
What would be more surprising, the Cowboys hiring Brian Schottenheimer or trading Micah Parsons? Because that was a very surprising hire.
Right, but trading your franchise pass rusher who's 25. I think Zach said it earlier in our group chat thread we have amongst us that it's him and CeeDee Lamb and who else? Like Dak Prescott's there, but
can't put past anything Jerry Jones.
Right. No, right. That's why we're actually talking about this for I think 10 minutes now, because it's a legitimate it's a thing that can happen. This isn't like Myles Garrett. This could really happen. Mm-hmm. And Dallas would have no issue dealing Micah to the AFC in Baltimore. That would not ever be an issue. Max Crosby and Myles Garrett obviously would. I legitimately think this is a thing where if Eric DaCosta picks up the phone and talks, I think this could happen.
Yeah, you got
really do. And I'm trying not to get my hopes up, but too bad they're already on. Moral of the story is go out, use your chips, push them all in. I'm not saying sell the farm and, this year or no year, but there's definitely a way in a world where you can add a really good star to a unit that's lacking it heavily, and you would not really hurt yourself in any way.
I think number one priority is definitely re-signing Ronnie Stanley. We talked about how important the offensive line is, and like you cannot do this. You cannot keep doing this where you just figure something out as the offseason goes on. Like it worked out last year way better than we thought it was going to, and it still wasn't good enough. So like if you keep Stanley, then it's like Stanley, Linderbaum, and Rosengarten, and you just need to fill in the guards. Like I don't know. I think letting Zeitler go was a big mistake. Would the world be safe if Dallas lost both Luka and Micah in the same year?
Probably absolutely not. No,
dude,
they would riot.
Being a Dallas fan would be rough, man.
But like, and we saw how much the Eagles' defensive line attacked a bad Chiefs offensive line. Like the Eagles' D line did kind of dominate the Ravens, but it wasn't that bad. And whether Lele starts next year or not, we'll see. Like you have to have competition for Voorhees and Falele. Like you have, they cannot be the penciled in starters late July. Like that's not how you address a guard situation. Like you can't do that.
It's going to be a really tough market to bring Ronnie Stanley back to Baltimore. The good thing is I legitimately think he loves being here. He loves Lamar. He loves the atmosphere. He loves the team. So that's obviously always a bonus. But like this guy is going to get offered a lot of money from some really bad teams. Me and Brad were joking the other day about, Jacksonville Jaguars throwing out $23 million a year to Stanley, or the Raiders or some trash team that has all the money to offer to a franchise left tackle who is now 30, coming off his best season yet, I would say. But I mean, I think he wants to be here. I think there's a pretty good chance of Stanley returning. It's just scary to think about because, even past the season that he just had, he has dealt with a lot of injuries in recent years, and it's a matter of one play, and we're back to the same issue. But obviously this time, if you bring him back, it's probably going to be like a 2 or 3 year deal. It's not going to be a 5. I think his extension was years ago. But I agree. I think he has to be number one priority right now. I think right now the guy you should be on the phone with is Ronnie Stanley and his agent trying to get him back, because if you get him back, left tackle is perfectly fine. You don't got to worry about that. Right tackle you don't got to worry about. Center you don't got to worry about. It's literally just the 2 guard spots. You let Stanley leave, or not let him leave, but if he departs from Baltimore, then there's a whole disaster going along the offensive line. The only one for sure who's playing is the center, Tyler Linderbaum. Because then you got to decide if you want to keep Roger Rosengarten at right tackle and just keep that good thing going. Do you want to try to throw him over to left tackle and see what he can do there, which I think he'd be fine. Because it's much easier to find a right tackle who can plug and play from the draft or whatever you want to call it, rather than left tackle. But, I mean, it would be the worst situation in the world if the Ravens are out here losing Stanley in free agency and we're going into the draft trying to draft a plug-and-play left or right tackle day one. I mean, you lose Ronnie Stanley and don't make a move for a significant left tackle or right tackle in free agency, you're going into the draft and the number one priority is tackle. And that completely limits your board. That completely throws off the your prospects. So that's really going to suck. I don't think the Ravens are going to try and do that. I think they're going to do everything they can to avoid that disastrous situation, which, God, hopefully. But I agree. I think Stanley has to come back, man. And if he comes back, that propels his team so much, because losing him, man, I hate to admit, it will set us back a little bit.
What would your guys' thoughts be on just like, I've wanted the Ravens to do this since 2021 with Villanueva. And we're talking about the D-line a lot, and I understand. But like, what if you just attack the O-line all offseason? Like, I've been preaching this for 3 years, and they haven't done it yet. Like, pay Stanley $20 a year. I get it. If he gets 26 from someone, you can't do anything about it. Pay Stanley $20 million a year, 2-year, 3-year deal, whatever. Draft a guard at 27. Like, an elite, like, build up an Eagles offensive line, right? And like, just be dominant. Be dominant. Derrick Henry rushed for 1,900 yards behind an average to below average offensive line.
And we should have never let Zeitler go, man. Having Zeitler this past season would have been so great over freaking Daniel Falele. I mean,
we were better than the average offensive line.
I would say they're pretty close to 16th.
I would say they're about middle of the road too. I would say the higher of middle road. I would say like 15-ish. I mean,
guard play was really bad
because it's like you have a really good left tackle and a really good right tackle and a really good center. So you
and like Rosengarten wasn't.
You have the best foundations, but you have absolutely no support in the middle.
Yeah.
So the bridge is held up well, but the contents of the bridge are collapsing because the guards were so bad.
And Rosengarten was a guy who got slightly better each game. Like he wasn't.
Yeah.
He became like really good like December. It wasn't like he was really good like week 3.
Yeah. But I mean, we threw this guy into the fire, and he was a rookie 3rd round pick.
He held up.
And dude, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but thank God Eric DaCosta picked him over the Kingsley guy that went to Kansas City.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
All I'm gonna say is if we would have picked Kingsley, man, we'd be in a much, much worse situation because we at least have a rookie, 1-year right tackle that we know is probably the future. We don't got to worry about left or right tackle if Stanley comes back. So, I mean, seriously, if we lock up Stanley and we get a pretty good deal off of it, dude, we're sitting pretty well because all you got to do is focus on guard. And I would probably say guard is easier to fill with players and tackle. I mean, you could just sign like a 35-year-old Kevin Zeitler for 1 or 2 seasons if he wants to ride out. Dude, you know what you're getting. He was one of the best guards in the league again this year, which is insane. So it's like, and you wouldn't have to pay him any money either. So, but I agree with this right here. This Falele cannot start next year, man. If we see Daniel Falele starting at right guard next year, man, it's gonna be brutal in Baltimore.
There's a few other things I want to talk about. One thing that sort of I was realizing slowly over the course of the rest of the playoffs is like obviously it's very doom and gloom for the Ravens and the Ravens fans, but like the Buffalo Bills had 0 turnovers against the Ravens. Ravens had 3 turnovers. Ravens still should have won. And then the Bills win the turnover battle against the Chiefs and lose. Like I remember I was watching a Bills podcast after the Bills Chiefs game, and like they didn't know what to say because they did everything they were supposed to. They just got outplayed because their roster isn't good enough. Like they forced a turnover and took care of the ball all game and lost to the Chiefs. And the Ravens are shooting themselves in the foot over and over and over again and barely losing. And like that's just the first thing, just obvious. And I think I forgot who said it in our chat, but like don't turn the ball over in the playoffs. Secondly, like you don't have to get the 1 seed, but like, and I've seen some people sort of be negative about like the regular season from here on out. Like a regular season doesn't matter anymore. It's just gonna wait till the playoffs and like see what we can do there. But like, go get the 1 seed. Go get the 1 seed. The Ravens play the Bills and the Chiefs next year. Win both of those games. Go get the 1 seed. Play 2 games in Baltimore. It's funny that how like superstitions are just not real at all. Like we had everyone had themselves convinced that like the 1 seed was cursed and Ravens were bad at home, but obviously we would have held a lot better against the Bills.
I don't know, man.
Baltimore.
I feel like I'm kind of in the minority here. Like I'm kind of, I'm not saying I have no hope or anything like that, of course, but it's like I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be really hard for me next season to be like in any way ecstatic or hopeful that this team can get over the hump if we're like if we finish 12-5 and we're the 3 seed or 2 seed. Like it's gonna be hard for me to sit here and think this team can win a Super Bowl because we've seen it every season now. This team is roaring into the playoffs and then they fall flat on their face every single time and turn the ball over 3 times a game. It's like until we see otherwise, man, I'm not gonna lie, I'm one of the people that it's gonna be very hard to sit here and logically and realistically think that, oh yeah, we're winning the Super Bowl this year. Like we're gonna get it done. We'll beat Kansas City. Like I have to see it to believe it, man. I think this loss was pretty tough, and I hate to say this loss was tough on me, but it's like seriously, man, this loss was pretty brutal, and it really made me think like this team's got to show me for me to believe it now because I don't care if we're, the 2 seed going in next year, or God knows the 1 seed or 3 seed, whatever it's going to be. It's going to be very, very tough.
Yeah, Zach's giggling right now. What was I going to say?
Zach, you don't agree?
No, I was not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the comments.
Zach is pure
I'm
optimism.
sorry.
Yeah, I'll just be honest, bro.
I'm definitely not.
With a lot of these guys.
I honestly think I feel more optimistic than Zach right now. I just feel like, I was texting my dad during the Super Bowl. I was like, Ravens have easily the best roster in the AFC. Like, it's not close. It is not close. It's funny that the Ravens blew them out, but like Texans have a really good roster. I think the Texans have a better roster than probably the Bills. What is this comment?
I don't know, bro.
I don't even understand.
Dude, I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Wait, is that for real? Both games next year for the Ravens? It's in Buffalo and in Kansas City.
They're in Buffalo.
Yeah, that's rough.
I thought we were home against Buffalo. No,
the Ravens play the Chiefs. This is going to be the 7th regular season game in the Lamar era against the Chiefs. I think one of them were in Baltimore.
Dude, that is
Really?
Dude,
Yes.
The NFL is so garbage, bro. The NFL is so garbage.
2. The other one was it was COVID year though, so
bro, I hate the NFL. This shit's garbage.
Ravens just go to KC every year.
I don't know, man. Oh, it's so tough. Like obviously, I know the Ravens are going to be good next year. Like obviously, this team is going to make the playoffs and be good. God forbid something crazy happens, but it's just like wild card weekend or hopefully divisional round weekend, first playoff game. We're trotting out there. I'm going to be like, hopefully the Ravens don't turn the ball over 4 times today.
Yeah,
because
but listen, like these other teams are doing it too.
Not really though. That's the issue.
Listen, like, you saw the Bills Chiefs game. Josh Allen should have thrown 3 picks on the first drive. They were all dropped.
Right. I agree, but he didn't. That's the issue though. It's like the Ravens are a completely different team when they're in the playoffs. Like we are the best team in the regular season, and when we get to the playoffs, dude, we just play like garbage. Like we just forget how to play football, dude. It doesn't make any sense.
But I do think that
it's every time, dude.
I think that like the Lamar worries are gone now.
Yeah.
Like he played one of the best halves of his career in the snow against Buffalo. We're completely disregarding the fact that Zay Flowers wasn't playing. First of all.
Yeah. That last drive like gave me hope. Because if that last drive didn't happen and the Ravens just finished out that game dead in the water,
yeah,
I would have been like very like drained and like
it's a very different vibe.
But like the fact that Lamar led a drive that was like a must happen down the field with Steven Sims and Anthony Miller in that atmosphere, in that environment, dude, and he went right down the field and scored it gives me hope. Like he can do it. Like I'm not worried about him. He makes turnovers happen, but
who are you worried about? Because I think we're all worried about the same player.
Oh geez, don't even. Mark Andrews. But this is a really tough situation because Mark Andrews historically in the playoffs has fallen flat on his face, and I don't get why.
Mark Andrews' career drop percentage in the playoffs is 20%. Like an average drop percentage for like a good receiver is like 4 or 5%, maybe 3. He's dropping 1 out of every 5 catches in the playoffs. And also one thing that I think I'm just gonna make everyone sad when I say this, but his first drop of the game would have been a 10-yard reception the play before Lamar's fumble.
Yeah.
So like in terms of how crucial both drops were, like insane. But Dawson, what were you gonna say?
Listen, man, I freaking love Mark Andrews. I have the jersey. Like he's obviously everyone's like fan favorite. He's the franchise leader in touchdowns, and he's got all this stuff going on. But it's like, dude, the Ravens can save $11 million this offseason by moving on from Mark Andrews, and you have Isaiah Likely sitting in the wings, and Isaiah Likely shows up when called upon, and I'm not gonna say as good as Mark Andrews, but he's every everything you want from a tight end. So I'm just saying there's a real chance the Ravens could potentially bite the bullet and move on, save a lot of money, maybe go put it towards a guy like Micah Parsons. And you still have a very, very, very solid tight end in Isaiah Likely for far, far cheaper for at least the next couple of years. So don't be surprised, Ravens fans. I'm not saying it's likely, but don't be – that's funny. Don't be surprised if it does potentially happen.
I think it's one of those things that might be the logical decision, and it's probably something that most fans would do if they were in charge.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's going to happen. It's just
either.
I mean, I think he has the franchise record for most touchdowns.
Yeah. He's still not even that old. He's still younger.
Yeah, it would be tough to move on from him. Maybe it just needs to be something like, I like KP's comment, like feature Likely more in the playoffs.
Please.
Run the 2-point conversion to Likely, right? Like, I don't know.
Like Likely needs to have like 75 targets next year, like at least.
Yeah, this is like we've been saying this like 3 seasons in a row now. Like Likely needs to have. Likely should be at minimum the third leading receiver on this team.
Like seriously, him and Andrews need to have 50-50 snap share. Like seriously.
No, I think it should be more likely than I think.
Yeah. No, not more than Andrews, Brad. Calm down. It needs to be at least like 50-50.
Isaiah Likely's really good.
Okay. All right.
I agree with you. I just think that really this smoke about Mark Andrews is all bull crap. There's no way the Ravens get rid of him.
Yeah, they're not going to.
Dawson made a great point, though. If someone becomes available in which you need cap space or you need a player to put onto the trade to get a different level player, that's the only scenario I see him getting moved. I think, near draft, just given all this drama right now that's happened since that game, I'm sure a team in need of a tight end is probably going to make a call. They'll probably at least test the waters, right?
Yeah.
Dip your toe in the water and see what happens, right?
Listen, Commanders,
Broncos,
in the NFC, in the NFC, in the DMV, Commanders, dude, need a tight end.
Teams need tight ends. Like,
dude, can you imagine Mark Andrews and Jane Daniels?
Yeah,
exactly. Like, and
but you have 2 really good ones. That's the other part of the conversation. We have 2 really good ones.
Yeah,
whether Mark is bad in the playoffs or not, like
we would never be
only bad in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I mean,
and one other thing is like, I've seen people, even the Ravens fans who are like the biggest Harbaugh supporters in the world, have said like, at what point do you just need to make a change, even if there's no scapegoat, right? Like, even if there's not a single person you can point out and be like, you are the problem, like maybe you just need to make a few changes. And, we talked about Harbaugh earlier with 1 year left on his deal. Like, I don't know, like, it's not like the Ravens are winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl and we're just having these crazy ideas. Like, I don't think anything that anyone has to say is that crazy of an idea. Like, you're just trying to go get a ring, right? Like, maybe moving on from someone who has really struggled in the playoffs his whole career, like maybe that's something you need to do. Maybe he goes to the Commanders and he's great in the playoffs. Like maybe he needs a reset. Like, I don't know. I just think I think there's nothing really that's like that crazy to say right now when you're trying to get over the hump.
Like Zach said, we wouldn't ever be having this conversation if we didn't have like a legitimate starting caliber like tight end with Isaiah Likely.
Yeah.
Like we would never be talking about this. Charlie Kolar, no hate to him, that's a dog. Like we would never be saying any of this if he was our tight end too. But like the Ravens could benefit from this. You could potentially throw him in a package, and we're talking about an all-pro tight end under the age of 30 who's still very good, led the league in touchdowns this year and didn't have a touchdown until like week 5. So we're talking about a guy who's legitimately a top 3 tight end in the NFL, top 5, 100%. And it's like, dude, it would be a huge asset for a team to go trade for or potentially acquire if we dump the cap. So it could happen, man. It definitely is not something the Ravens can overlook and immediately shoot down. They have to weigh all their options. And even if it is a very bittersweet moment, which it 100% would be, it would definitely suck. But if it helps this team get over the hump and can help them get closer to becoming a championship team, and it adds, adds a key component to another part of the team, why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you? The Ravens would be pretty stupid to not entertain that if it does help them.
Yeah, you got to look at everything right now. Just
Yeah, you have to.
Bills fans are feeling the exact same way. Just got to find. I mean, I think Bills fans are feeling pretty confident about the possibility of getting Myles Garrett, which just sucks that the Ravens have no chance of doing that.
Real quick,
like Dawson said,
I'll say just before I forget, because there was a comment on Instagram about it, the whole coaching scenario. Yeah, obviously change is scary. Moving on from Harbaugh, you don't know what's after that. You don't know who's going to fill in and try to continue the long road of culture and success that's brewed in Baltimore forever. Especially since 2008 with Harbaugh, and it's like the Eagles a few years ago. They made a big move and went out and got Sirianni, and a lot of people were unsure of what's going to go on there. And he's a weird guy. He's not a player's coach or whatever. They've been to 2 Super Bowls in 4 years, and they just won a ring with a guy that they were unsure of, and also a quarterback that they're unsure of. So change is scary, but it can work out in a big favor, just like it did at the Eagles.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think that's about all we had for you guys tonight. This episode's kind of the last one of the season and the first one of the off season at the same time. I decided to title it End of Season Q&A because we're kind of going to have a season preview before free agency. But kind of just taking a moment to talk about the season and, kind of reflecting on it and how we think. We're all just brainstorming at this point. How the Ravens finally get to that big dance and win the big one. But yeah, we're gonna be active this offseason, unlike last one. We're planning on getting out videos individually of like position groups and how the Ravens should address each position, go a little bit more in depth there. If you are on Instagram, feel free to check out Charm City Sideline on YouTube. Like and subscribe over there. It would help us out a ton. If you're here on YouTube watching us for the first time, feel free to hit the subscribe button. Like I said, we'll be active all off season, all of next season. Feel free to go check us out on Spotify if you would rather listen to the podcast audibly. Maybe you're driving to work, anything like that. Rate us 5 stars. Like the video. And we'll see you guys, I think, in about in a week. So
free agent content's gonna be fun, boys. Get ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, get ready for it. Get ready for it. Buckle up. Yeah. So thanks everyone for being here tonight, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.